All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another day of SaberSim's DFS office hours. Today is a Monday, August 25th of 2025. Looking ahead here, we had two different two-game League of Legends slates get underway earlier this morning. We had 36 matches for the tennis U.S. Open, and then there was a 12-match tennis slate that got underway about an hour ago. Good luck to everybody playing those slates that are already in progress for the rest of the day. We have a 2-game WNBA main slate, and then we have a 10-game MLB main slate. So should be a fun day of DFS. For those of you who are new here, welcome. My name is Andrew, one of the coaches over here at SaberSim. This is a show where we go over how to use the SaberSim app, answer any and all DFS-related questions. Get your questions in one of three ways here. First off, send us an email, support@sabersim.com. Second, post it live in the YouTube chat. Third way, post it in the office hours channel in our Discord server. If you're not in our Discord and want to get access to that channel, there is a link in the description of this video. You also get access to our similar channels, individual sport channels, and you get access to the rest of the SaberSim team. Just can't say enough good things about the Discord. But with that said, we do this show Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern, and then we do this show on Saturdays at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. So tune in any one of those days. Get your questions answered. Quick announcement. We will be having office hours Monday through Thursday of this week. So just so you guys are aware, we will not have a show on Friday and Saturday. But I'll remind everybody as the week continues on that front. In the meantime, let's get SaberSim pulled up here. And I was checking before the show, but it looks like we're actually all caught up with questions in Discord, in office hours, done before the show here. So that's great. Figured we could mix it up a little bit today. Start with a WNBA demo. Two-game WNBA slate here on tap for tonight. Now, you'll notice that when the slates are smaller, min and max salary range is a little bit wider here. I think that's like actually really okay for these two-game slates. You'll see the sliders here, right? 0-9. So basically no correlation, just relying, or I'm sorry, not no correlation, relying we could see Wilson's highest correlation here is to Gray at 0.13, right? These are the raw correlations. The correlation slider amplifies the correlations. It increases it. It makes it more likely that Wilson and Gray end up in lineups together. What the sliders are saying is like, hey, this is a two-game slate. You're probably going to need something pretty close to the optimal lineup to win. So we want to just rely on the play-by-play correlations and not basically tamper with those sim results. So we're taking, small buckets of sims at Sim Diversity 9, and then we're building the best lineups with just the raw play-by-play sim correlation. So outside of the two projection adjustments you need to make to unlock the build lineups button, I'm not personally doing anything special here. You could, if you were like handicapping, WNBA, whether it be like minutes or usage or something like that, right? If, you're doing that additional research, great. Put that information in up front. But if you're just, trusting the SaberSim team and our analysts and, the data and projection and minutes that we provide, then, nothing else I think is really warranted. No type of rules or filters, especially like on a two-game slate. I think that excluding players can actually probably hurt you a little bit, especially with like the format here, right? So these contests, I would imagine, have higher duplication rates. We could check that by going back to a past contest and checking, which maybe we'll do here. So let's stop this. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to look at WNBA. And we're just going to kind of go back here. So three game. Basically looking for a two-gamer somewhere. Okay, two-game late. I would rather see like a two-game main so we can see like similarly sized contests. because I'm sure the late isn't as big. Okay, perfect here, right? 8/12. So it's been about 2 weeks since we've seen a contest of like, oh, wait, we're not going to be able to do this. Okay, we're going to have to go back to June to figure this out, actually. So I believe our contest flashback data for at WNBA is okay. This 6/26 slate, 2-game main slate. This one should have contest sim results. Okay, we go contests. Say we go to the shoot around. Let's see if this loads. Should load. Oh, you know what? I clicked this one up here. I got to click this one down here. Okay, there we go. Boom. All right, cool. So we see the sim results. What are the max entries? 105. Okay, so let's look at maxers. Let's look at top sim ROI. So there is some duplication here, right? It's actually not as much as I probably would have imagined, but it does matter a little bit here. So like we see 2 average dupes, 4, 7, 7, 8, 3, 4, 4, 6. So dupes in the single digit range, but creeping up, in like plenty in like the 5 to 10 area. So I think this tells us like, hey, we should account for it a little bit. We don't need to be crazy. We're not seeing, double digit dupes. We're not seeing, anything close to what we would for something like NFL Showdown. So this gives you like an idea of how aggressive you need to be. And that was basically what we were trying to accomplish here. So we can go back to today. And question, would you be able to go over the best ways to utilize the flashbacks for MLB while you're on the subject? Yeah, we will do that after this one. Perfect segue question afterwards. All right, so we go back to today. WNBA 2-gamer. So we built our lineups. Contest sim ran. That's why we have the globe. Diversifier ran, sorted by portfolio. Looks like we had 5 lineups. So let's say we're doing 20 lineups. And let's sort by exposure. And I'm just moving some things around a little bit. Okay, it looks okay. All right, so we're about ready to analyze these lineups. We said we built 20. Our average projection, 162. Our average ROI is 101. Coming in here, looking at, first, right, our exposures and our leverages. Top leverage is like still under 15%. It is to what looks to be the highest owned player on the slate. So Wilson is 40% owned. We have 55%. It's not really a big stand, so double-digit leverage seems fine. Reese, about 40% owned, a little less. 50% exposure, 10% leverage. I think there was one a little bit lower. Edwards here looks like a value play a little bit. 20% owned, 35% exposure, 14% leverage. So no like major huge stands here. Highest exposed player, 55%. The builder's getting pretty spread out here on its own. Now it's just a matter of like if you have opinions or not. Me, I'm mostly like trying to do some QA. I'm like, okay, how are we handling the highest value players? And like the 2 top values are two of our double digit leverages, and we have 4 double digit leverages. So that makes sense to me. I think those 2 players are also like top projected. Other than that, I don't really see anything standing out to me as like particularly bad. Portfolio is cutting out a lot of steps of, needing to use uniques and trying to find the right number. So I'm really happy with this. I think these lineups are going to be competitive. I think they're going to have high upside, and I think they're going to give me the ability to be in a spot to hopefully take down a contest. So I like this a lot. I'd be ready to save these and upload them to my contest. All right. now that we knocked out that WNBA demo, we're going to answer this question, talking about flashback for MLB. So first thing we got to do, go back to yesterday, and let's go to the main yesterday, MLB. Okay, so I had an 8-game slate yesterday, so we will use this in our analysis. Okay, so let's say I am playing the $1.20 max, and I want to study my lineups in flashback. All right, so I go to the $1.20 max, and I'm going to let this load. Go over to users. So when you're analyzing this, I always recommend if you entered less than the maximum lineups in any contest, to right-click on entries, change this to greater than or equal to. Like, let's say you entered 15. I would set this greater than or equal to 15. And then now I'm looking at everybody who entered as many lineups as me or more. Okay. So then, okay, I have my filter set. Now I sort by sim ROI, and I want to look at like some of the highest sim ROI lineups. Okay. And then I want to first off see where I'm at. So like when you're looking at your page, your name will be like frozen up at the top, and it'll tell you what your number is. And like maybe you came in at like 6%. You know, I think that's actually okay in this instance, because I tell people like, hey, if you're in the top 10 to 20 maxers sim ROI wise, or like if you're 10th to 20th like down on this list, generally that's like pretty good. So like if I had 6%, I'd be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 13th is like 6%, and there's 3 people. So 13, 14, 15. That feels really good, right? I think that, you know, there's going to be a little bit of variance up here at the top. And if you're like constantly like within view of the page when you open it, like, hey, you know, you're probably doing something right. So that's the first thing. But we can also get better, right? What are we going to do to get better? The main things I like to look at are how much salary did I use versus like how much of the top users using. Do I have more duplicates than they do? And then what is my sim average score? So like here, right, I'm looking at this. I'm like, okay, seems like there is kind of a range between like 95 and like 100-ish. Some of these guys are a little bit higher, 100.8, 101, 104. That's like really high. But I would say if your like average projection is somewhere between like 95 and 100, you're probably fine. Now, maybe like we're going to scroll down here, and like maybe sometimes you'll see this. I see a lot of well-projected sets. These are like very low sim ROIs, like -3, right? So like these lineups are not that bad. What if we go down like further? Go down to like some of the worst lineups. Interesting. Some of these like really high, maybe like Cashy. I'd be interested to look at this. Okay, so let's go to this player. Okay, they play like exclusively like 4-1-1-1-1s, right? I think this is why they're like sim ROI is bad, you know? And like this is something that you can look at, right? We don't always talk about looking at like the worst lineups in the lobby, but like you can learn from it. Like, hey, this lineup, this set of lineups does not have enough correlation. Like, yes, it grades out well, sim average score wise, but they are not playing enough stacks. So like that's like one thing you can take away. Here's another one. Slim Lancaster, 55 sim average score. Must have like players who like didn't play in the game, unfortunately. So I don't see a ton in relation to like projected score, but you can look at like what kind of lineups people played. Hey, I'm gonna look at this guy, 32% sim ROI. Like, what did he do? Okay, 60% 5-2s, 20% 4-4s, 15% 5-3s, 1-4-3. So very high correlation there. 40% Minnesota. Okay, how did Minnesota grade out here? Okay, so interesting. They faded the top 2 projected run teams and then took a shot on like the 3rd highest projected run team, right? So fading some of the chalk bats here completely and then playing, you know, Minnesota at like a very high rate, which I don't know how any of these games played out. But that's what I'm interpreting here. All right, we go to our pitchers and we look at the highest owned pitchers and we look at how they did, right? Okay, they also fully faded Ranger Suarez. That didn't end up working out super well for them. Looks like he pitched very, very well. So unfortunate, but they took a very aggressive stand and it just didn't work out, right? But the builder likes the stand long term, right? Not all of this is supposed to be such like immediate feedback. You know, I've seen this strategy before. This strategy looks very familiar to some very big names like Giant Squid, like Need Lunch Money. You know, we've studied Squid's lineups after he's had huge days, and someone will ask like, hey, you know, Squid was all over leaderboard. Like, can you review his lineups? And then it's like, oh, he faded Crochet, Yamamoto, and Eovaldi all on the same slate, and all of them pitch bad. Now, one thing I've seen, which, you know, maybe this could be like a point for like this user, right? When I've seen it, usually some of the examples I've seen, they aren't full fades. You know, this is super aggressive, right? He's 40% owned. He came in at close to 50. Going 0% is extremely aggressive. You know, I've seen situations like this where like Squid might go 25% max. So he's like, hey, you know, I'm not going to full fade this guy. You know, he's owned high for a reason, but I do want to have less shares of him because if he fails, I want to have more shares of other pitchers. And he's kind of hoping he does bad, but he's hedging a little bit, right? This user did not hedge at all. They were like, I'm all in on Ranger Suarez having a bad day, you know, and it didn't work out, right? So if I were to give this user any advice, right, and I'm pretty sure Dark Knight is SaberSim user. I've seen the name around. I would say, you know, it's okay to be, you know, the same way we talk about, hey, being 2 to 3x the field, like when you're trying to be over on somebody, hey, you know, being 2 to 3x under on somebody is okay too. Like it's, you know, going 0% is essentially the same as like locking a player, you know, on the other side of the spectrum, right? We're talking about the negative leverage side. So I might not have gone, or I might recommend not going so aggressive in the negative direction next time around would be like my best advice for this user, right? So this is like analyzing like a contest that you're playing, right? You can also take it a step further and look at contests you didn't play or look at contests that you want to play, right? You know, I'm going to go look at like $18 150 max. People maxing this contest are some of the best players in the lobby, right? They can afford to. They've won enough long-term to be able to do it. They're very good players. It's like if I come in here, wow, I think this guy ran a train. Yeah, he ran a 2-2 train. Oh my gosh, this is crazy. All right, so I'm pretty sure 150 maxers did not do good here. So I'm going to look at 150 maxers. I'm going to sort by sim ROI. And then I'm going to look at some of these top players, right? There's Roth, Brontosaurus, this Kurt, this is Hicks, Royal Pain, right? A lot of big names. One that I'm very familiar with, Need Lunch Money, you know? So I come in here. Okay, I look at lunch, go to projections. And like here, right? This is kind of what we talked about. Like this is what I've seen in where they take the top projected owned guy when, you know, it's like far and away highest owned. And they're saying, I'd rather play like, I'd rather be under on them, but I would rather not like full fade them completely, right? So just like a takeaway here on the pitcher side, at least a 4 stack in every lineup. They had Washington tied for the highest exposed. So not only did they go under on Suarez, they're like, no, I'm actually going to stack the Nationals in case I'm right. And then I could be like double right or like really right that not only did Suarez do bad and I capitalized on that, I capitalized on all the hits and runs he gave up by playing the Nationals, who probably had a very low ownership. So that's another takeaway here, right? Look at the projected runs of these teams. Highest exposed, 4.4, 3.9, 4.1, 4.2, 4.6, 4.3. Where are the highest owned players, right? Very low on Philly, some Mets, some Minnesota, some Baltimore, but a lot more exposure to the bottom projected run teams, right? When you get into this like 4.4 range, it's 21, 13, 16, 20, 10, 21. Those are all like higher numbers than the top 4 projected run teams, right? Top 4 projected runs was 10% max. And they had just about that to like everyone between this like 4.4 to 3.9 range minus Miami. So I think it speaks a little bit more to like baseball and how high variance baseball is and some of the strategies that you can take here where you might not win as often with this strategy, but like when you're right, you have a little bit clearer path to first place just because I bet a lot of these teams' ownerships are a lot lower. So when you have more shares of them, it ends up working out. So volatile strategy, but can be profitable based on what we're seeing here in Flashback with a positive 12% sim ROI. So spend a little time looking at multiple players here. You're going to see people come at it from different angles. This is just one version of that. And then kind of figure out what things you could take from individual people. And then that's kind of how you create a personalized process. You learn a thing here, you learn a thing there, and all of a sudden you're doing your own thing, right? So that would be my best advice for utilizing Flashback for MLB. All right. Knocked out a WNBA demo, knocked out a Contest Flashback MLB demo. I think we're all set for today. Appreciate you guys tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow, Tuesday, 4 p.m. Eastern for our next show. So until then, everybody, take care. Good luck. Thanks. Bye.